Goodman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
It is 8:37 on the Morning Majority, and we have Judge Andrew Napolitano of the Fox Business Network. He hosts Freedom Watch. How's it going, Judge?
Good morning, guys. I'm fine. How are you?
Hey, he is also, by the way, the author of It is Dangerous to be Right When the Government is Wrong, The Case for Personal Freedom, so check it out. Judge, I wanted to ask you about what we were just discussing. Attorney General Holder refused to actually say that he apologized to the family of Brian Terry, the border agent who was killed by a gun walked by the U.S. government during the Fast and Furious scandal. Is there a reason legally that he would avoid saying he was sorry? He said he regretted that it happened, but didn't kind of get around to apologizing.
You know, Mary Catherine, I think this is an area where politics and the law intersect, and I can only surmise that there's a political reason for him not wanting to apologize, because the president doesn't want that apology repeated by whoever is the Republican candidate running against him in the 2012 campaign. There's no legal reason for this. Brian Terry's family's ability to collect money from the government as a result of Brian's murder is well regulated by the statutes and would not be changed by any acknowledgments or concessions or admissions on the part of the government.
I just read a tweet.
That the Attorney General has dug a very, very deep hole for himself, out of which he may not be able to climb politically, and it may be necessary for the president, to use the vernacular, to throw him under the bus sufficiently in advance of November 2012 to try and get this off the front pages.
Just a quick update from Cheryl Atkinson, the reporter, the CBS reporter who's been on this, tweeted this morning that the family may indeed file a wrongful death lawsuit. They're in the process.
Well, they can file it, and they're entitled to a lot of money, but unfortunately federal employees are limited to what they can obtain from the federal government as a consequence of their duty-related deaths by statute, and a lawsuit is not going to interfere with that. But I don't blame them for trying. This is an incendiary case. If it ever gets to a jury, I would think the jury would clobber the government for its behavior.
All right, I want to ask you about the Herman Cain story. You know, sexual harassment cases are awful hard to sort out because you got he said, she said. Oftentimes it's one word against another, and often there is not documentation to back up either claim. Often these things happen in situations where there are no witnesses.
Right.
What do you make of all this? If you were a judge hearing this as a case, how would you tend to come down on it?
I'd have a couple of observations, Brian. One, I would be very curious as to why it took so long for these complaints to be manifested. I'm not talking about the ones that were settled. They apparently were raised in a timely manner and settled in a timely manner. But the newer ones, like the woman that works for the federal government and Gloria Allred's client, I forget these folks' last names, so I'm characterizing them as best I can, it waited years to raise this. So that's one red flag. The other red flag is this is not he said, she said. The she, or whoever the victim is, has what the law calls the burden of proof. Herman Cain, under the law, doesn't have to prove that this didn't happen. Those complaining must prove that it did. So their evidence must be more compelling, more credible, and more persuasive than his denials. If all things are equal, or if it is a he said, she said, then under the law, he prevails because the plaintiff has the burden of coming forward and persuading a fact finder that these things happened the way the plaintiff says they happened.
Do you think you could sue for defamation? Is that an easy case?
Very, very difficult lawsuit when you are someone like Herman Cain, because the standard for a public figure, which is certainly what he is what's called knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard. It's stated differently. The Herman Cain's lawyers would have to prove that the plaintiff made this up and stated what she knew to be false in order to prevail. And then again, even if he did prevail, these people probably don't have the kind of money that a defamation plaintiff would be looking for.
We're talking with Andrew Napolitano. His new book is called "It Is Dangerous to Be Right When the Government Is Wrong: The Case for Personal Freedom." On this Penn State saga, I'm ready for the next thing to come out where they'll say, well, we're not going to be able to talk because, there's a legal ongoing case here. We're not going to talk. Is that the case? I mean, is Joe Paterno and Mike McQuarrie, this graduate assistant who actually saw this sex act apparently happen, are they legally, they can talk about what they told the grand jury, right? There's nothing stopping them from doing that.
They can talk about what they told the grand jury, and they can choose to remain silent, and they have no legal obligation to report what they learned about. I am sick and tired of people saying that Joe Paterno should leave Penn State because he didn't call the police as a result of what a graduate student said he saw. First, there is no obligation in this country to report a crime unless the crime is treason. Secondly, there is the right to remain silent because the First Amendment, which says the government may not interfere with your speech, also means that the government may not compel your speech. Third, Joe Paterno didn't witness anything. He reported to his superiors what he heard. That discharges his legal and his moral obligation.
Oh, wait a second. Joe Paterno is the football coach at Penn State University. This happened inside his facility.
He doesn't know that. He only knows what someone told him.
Okay, well, somebody who he coached for several years, somebody who was on his staff, tells him that a former assistant coach who was legendary there is having sex, sodomizing. Well, we don't know exactly if he said that or not, but we know for sure that he told Paterno that there was sexual molestation going on in the shower. You don't think Paterno has a moral obligation to make sure that he knows exactly what happened or even contact his old friend?
I'm sorry, I thought the question was about a legal
argument. Well, no, I know the legal argument of it. I realize that legally he probably hasn't done anything wrong, but you said morally. I mean, to me, morally, you do have a responsibility.
He may be legally off the hook.
You have a responsibility to go to the police every time a third person tells you that someone else did something wrong. If that is the case, then we become like East Germany in the 60s and 70s, where the most frequently prosecuted crime was not murder, rape, robbery. It wasn't even treason or espionage. It was failure to report your neighbor. If we want to live in a society like that, where every time someone tells us someone else did something wrong, it's a crime for us not to go to the cops, we'll become like East Germany.
So you're saying that the athletic director had no responsibility to tell the police?
I'm saying that Joe Paterno had no
Okay, well, he told the athletic director. Did the athletic director have the responsibility to tell the police?
Under Pennsylvania law, he did. But under Pennsylvania law, Joe Paterno did not. The reason the athletic director does is because the athletic director is responsible for the behavior of children on that campus. Joe Paterno is not.
Okay, I understand the legal, but I disagree with him morally. I mean, I think to me he's got.
I mean, who enforces morality? If the government gets in the business of enforcing morality, that will be.
That's not the government. I mean, it's the man. He's running this football program, and I'm sure he's heard whispers about Sandusky before because there was an investigation in '98. And to me, if one of your assistant coaches tells you that he's seeing a boy being raped by another coach, to me, you have to do something about that. You have to make a big stink about it. I mean, morally. Legally, I guess you're right. I adhere to your words of wisdom on the legality of it, but morally, I tend to think that he was just wrong not to push it further.
If we get into the position where people feel morally compelled to go to the police whenever hearsay is whispered into our ears, we'll be like East Germany.
Okay.
Well, he didn't even go to Jerry Sandusky, which would have been a step he could have taken without getting the government involved.
But anyway, it's great to have you on.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge, very much. Appreciate it.
When we disagree,
I know.
As when we love each other.
Well, if there were no disagreements, it would be pretty boring sometime.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, Judge. Good to hear you.
Judge Andrew Napolitano. You see him on Fox News. He's got a new book out called "It's Dangerous to Be Right When the Government Is Wrong."